We have now launched the online Shockwave course. When I set the company up, which is over 12 years ago now, which is hard to believe, I was always about educating the clinicians as well, not just in terms of the technology. So when Dom Smith came to me with this idea of doing the Shockwave course, I was all for it. And Dom and Katie have done a fantastic job of putting it together. It's really impressive, really comprehensive. It is technology agnostic, so whatever system you're using will be able to help you with this. So it's a brilliant piece of work. The guys have done really well. So check it out and go to the link below and let us know what you think. Hello, welcome. Today I am joined by Simon Devane, who is the CEO at Pure Sports Medicine. Simon, how are you doing?
Good, thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
Well, no, thank you for coming on. So I think probably out of all the organisations that I've done, of the 200 of these that I've done, Pure Sports Medicine has taken up the most proportion out of any one organisation. So I'm very much looking forward to getting your perspective on things because I think the organisation is really cool. So yeah, again, thanks for coming on.
No problem at all. Yeah, well, hopefully, I think a lot of my colleagues have given you clinical and medical perspectives. So, given I don't come from a clinical or medical background, hopefully a different angle for you.
Yeah, I mean, for this stuff, we don't really touch that much on the clinical piece just because, again, there's so much out there that's talked around that. And I'm just always fascinated by it, particularly when you get someone like John Etherington talking about his military background and the leadership piece, or Claire talking about how the company formed. It's really cool. So, like from your perspective, how is it to work with people like that?
Well, it's fascinating. We operate in a service-orientated business, so people are absolutely critical to that. I come from a strong sporting background. I've always been involved in teams. So, to be successful, you need to build a strong team. So having excellent people around you in different areas and different disciplines is absolutely vital to any business success. So it's fantastic because you have people around you that are much better at certain things than you are, and or have a deep knowledge in certain areas where you need those expertise. So it's we have a lot of fun as well, which is important. So I feel fortunate to have a great bunch of people to work with. Yeah, that's always a great position to be in when you really thrive off each other, and it's really important, isn't it, with any business? And I think particularly with when you're recruiting people now, I think that's even more important that people are looking at what is the culture like and do you buy into it? It's so important. Yeah, it is. And, I guess it's, you got to understand what motivates people. And, we are like a lot of companies, a multi-generational organization. And so, what one generation wants or needs from an employment environment is often different from another. So understanding what makes people tick in that respect, and what they're looking for from an employment situation is critical. And then working out how to get the most out of that, and bring it all together in a coordinated fashion that works for the business. Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges. I mean, it's heavily intensive when you have a service orientated business. It's people focused, and there is inherent variability baked into that situation. So. Yeah, but I think on balance we've got a super team, and but we're always learning. What has worked this year, or what was good enough this year may not be good enough next year. So I think that's the exciting thing, that the challenges and demands keep pushing you forward. The benchmark keeps getting higher, and I think like any good team, you've got to adapt and evolve. So and again, having a strong team, within the business to help support that is critical. Yeah, definitely. So from your perspective, you've been at the organization for a long time. So how do you, other than like the people there, how do you keep yourself motivated and driven to want to be pushing things forward? Well, that is a good and topical question, particularly given the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was never. I mean, I joined the business in 2007, and in the early days, it was very much a case of very entrepreneurial, still going, just finishing proof of concept, and a lot of growth in a lot of areas. So at that point, it's pretty easy to be motivated. It's hugely exciting. You are wearing a number of hats, and then as that business starts to get bigger and becomes more established, it needs different things. And so motivations change. Growth is always there, and growth is exciting. And with growth comes opportunity. So I would say like leading right up until 2019, it was hugely exciting. And then of course we got into that very challenging period of dealing with the pandemic. And perversely, the first 6 months of that were pretty exciting because it's basically survival mode. But once you got through that survival piece and you knew that you were going to be okay, it was very challenging to stay motivated on all fronts. And that was one thing we reflected on as a senior management team, and as individuals. I had never wanted for motivation in my life. And for the first time, I was finding myself questioning, I'm not feeling terribly enthusiastic about today. But having those conversations with friends in different sectors as well as my own colleagues was important. Luckily, we got through that, and now we are back into a period of growth within our sector in general, I'm saying here, and back into a far more normal and predictable environment. And because we're back on that growth journey and there are opportunities coming, that is exciting. So I think certainly from my perspective, it's nice to put the last sort of 3 and a bit years behind us and to focus on some really positive things, which again, it's easy to get excited about. Development within the business, whether that's, diversification within service lines or just general growth. With the backdrop being a sector that is growing, it's hugely exciting. So yeah, I'm feeling very enthusiastic about things at the moment. We had a Christmas party a week ago, nice to celebrate with the team. And we're going to start the new year with a super bunch of people across all the clinics and really strong demand. So yeah, it's there's been a few ups and downs in the last couple of years, but on balance, it's been a very positive and enjoyable journey.
Do you think that there's ever going to be not ups and downs in things? Because you always think when I'm looking at I've started my business 13 years ago, and it's like you think, right, well, you when you get saying that when you're a kid, actually, you think when you're 30, you're going to know what you're doing then. You're going to cracked it. When you've been in business 13 years, yeah, you're going to be stable by then. And it's like it definitely isn't the case on that. So, do you think you ever can crack this, or like, what's your perspective on that?
Um, I think there'll always be another bar that either you want to go to or the business can get to. And I think it's just probably being honest with yourself. At which point do you think, you have done all you can for in your role or for that business? And I'm saying this as a general statement. And sometimes you need, new ideas and a fresh direction. But from where I'm sitting, there's still a lot of opportunity to deliver, and that's the exciting piece. Going sideways is not a lot of fun, but going forwards and upwards is. And there's a huge amount of opportunity, I think, for the private sector that we operate in. Not just in London where we're focused at the moment, but outside of London, into other countries and other geographies. I think there's a lot that you could go for. So yeah, I think, as I said, I think there's always going to be another stage that you want to get to, either at a personal level or the business from a business perspective. And it's just working out whether you want to be part of that journey and that you can add value on that next stage, or if indeed you want to go away and do something else. Because, like any team, it is good to have fresh ideas and fresh leadership from time to time. So, you've got to be, I think you've got to be aware of that as an individual and know when it's time to do something else.
Yeah, yeah, no, I fully agree with that then. So for your role then, you've got some great people as part of your team. How would you define your role within that? Like, what's your main focus?
Good question. My kids asked me that the other day. What do I do at work? It's a role that's evolved. So I took over as chief executive in January of 2015. And at that point, I was still wearing a number of hats. So, we didn't have a chief financial officer, didn't have an ops director. So, at that point, I was wearing multiple hats, and that was a challenge because you end up feeling like you're doing a lot, but maybe not doing a particularly good job of any of those things. And actually, that's just the point of growth in the business, where you need to bring on, specialist people to head up those departments or those areas of the business. But now that the senior management team are all we've got people in post. My role is very much around, setting the strategy for the business, and working with the team to develop that strategy, what it's going to look like over the next few years, and then supporting my team mainly. There's daily challenges. I mean, I'm not removed from the day to day in terms of I know what's going on. But primarily it's around, supporting them to make sure that that they can do what they need to do. They've got the support, whether that's, financial support or advice to move things forward. The one area that I've probably retained more of a hands-on, more hands-on with still is a number of the commercial relationships, particularly around private health insurance. Purely for the fact of I've had those relationships since 2007, but I would like to pass them on at some stage. So yeah, that's one area that I'm still heavily involved in. But apart from that, it is coordinating and supporting the senior team, and driving the strategy for the business forward.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, you've seen you've had that loads of recruitment on the sports med side of things as well. So I fully agree with you. I think like the industry is really on that growth curve, and it's going to be quite a continual thing for the foreseeable future on it, which is really exciting, which we'll come back to in a second. But let's getting back to you, like you mentioned about sport and so on. So like, where are you from originally?
So New Zealand is where I was born and bred. Yeah. So I came to the UK in 2002. I came for 2 years at that point. I had a 2-year visa, and I was expecting to go back, and I had a job to go back to. So yeah, it was somewhat of a surprise that I enjoyed being in London in particular, but generally the UK as much as I did. And it was a surprise to particularly my family that I decided to stay. So yeah, it's been 22 years, and but I wouldn't change it. It's been hugely exciting. Sport has been a big part of that journey. So when I came to the UK, I was 27, and rugby was my main sport. So I was still playing rugby, and one of the great things about the sport is that team environment, the culture. And so, joining a club, I played for London Scottish here in London, and what a great environment, to meet some new people, lifelong friends. And that was a pretty significant part of me enjoying my initial few years here, and cementing, as I said, some tremendous friendships. So yeah, sport's been huge. Always been involved in teams, and you realise as you get on in your working career how important that ability to work in a team and understand the different roles that you can play in a team, whether that's leadership or support, but all driving towards a common goal. So I know a lot of people draw parallels between sport and business, and a lot of those are absolutely true and accurate. I guess the wider challenge is sport's pretty binary. You either win or you lose, and often in business it's a bit more complicated than that. But nonetheless, the ethos and the pulling everyone together to move in a common for a common purpose, towards a common goal is absolutely something that translates really strongly.
Yeah, well, James Kerr's book Legacy is one of my favorite books, and that's like exactly what you've just said, isn't it? Really, there it's about sport and being the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks, and how that relates to business. I just think it's really powerful, the messages that he's got in that. Where I was actually at an event in October in London where James Kerr spoke, and it was just brilliant. It embodied everything that the book was, maybe as you would expect. I presume you've read that.
I have, yeah, yeah. It's a book I encourage managers in our business to read. We there's a number of books that I think they probably should, take some time to read. And that's one of them. I think there's some great messages in it. It's an enjoyable read as well.
What are the other ones?
The Culture Code, I think, is a great one. Yeah, there's a lot in that. It's just, and I think for anyone who's got a fledgling business to sort of read that and understand how some pretty big companies got it right, it's really interesting. And the other one that I quite like is Measure What Matters, which everyone talks about objectives and key performance indicators and all that kind of stuff in business life. But Measure What Matters simplifies that story down, that message down. And again, I think there's some great learnings out of that for businesses to distill down the essence of what they're trying to do, and to be very clear about the drivers of whatever it is: growth, quality, experience, and being able to give a very clear message to people so they understand how they contribute to that and how it can be measured. So yeah, a couple of good books there that I think are definitely worth reading.
Oh, good. I've not actually done either of those, so I'm pleased with that. I'll last minute requests for presents is going to be good for that one. And so, like for the for like the KPIs, and it's important to have them, but then also sometimes you can be death by KPI. So I think that will be really interesting to look at that. How do you get that balance between?
Yeah, it's important. I mean, I think we're quite lucky in that our business, the sector we work in, is simple, sometimes a bit like sport. Sport can be very simple, but yet we make it incredibly complex. We're a people-orientated business, so yes, you need to attract patients, you need to engage with consumers and convert them into patients, and then once you've got them in your front door, you need to do a good job. You need to deliver a high level of service. You need to get a good outcome for them. They need to feel there's been value in that transaction, and that's it. In a nutshell, that's it. But underneath that, clearly, there are lots of things that contribute towards that being successful or not. Whether it's customer service or just having good systems to support that. So it's making sure that everyone in the organisation understands how they contribute towards that ultimate goal of delivering an excellent patient outcome and also a great experience, and trying to keep it as simple as possible. We've been guilty, like many businesses over the years, of overcomplicating certain things, or measuring things that actually we don't really do anything with the data at the end of the day. And I think being ruthless about that is actually a really good discipline, and that book, Measure What Matters, delves into some of that. And a lot of it is, you learn by doing. And I think as long as you are reflective and have the ability to critically analyze what you're doing and not be afraid to change, that's really important. So again, just because it was your idea, don't feel you need to be bound by it. If it's not working or it's not delivering what you need or what the business needs, then change it. And I think if you develop that mindset within your business and within particularly your management teams, that creates the agility that you need to move quickly and move forward with everyone understanding about where the business is going and how everyone can contribute to that.
Yeah, definitely. Like I find Claire Small really interesting and inspiring to listen to, and she spoke really well when I had the chat with her just about the issue of selling in healthcare. And I think it is a big issue with people that they really like they absolutely hate the idea of having to do it, when the reality is, of course, you need to make money. That's what literally every business needs. And she articulated it really well about essentially you're just presenting options that you think is going to genuinely help people. And I feel like that is really missed with a lot of people. They don't believe in what they're doing. How do you, what's your response to that?
Yeah, we're a consumer healthcare business, and the term consumer a few years back, well, it just didn't sit neatly or naturally within any healthcare setting. And when I first started referring to consumers in our business, some people found it pretty uncomfortable. it took a bit of explanation to say, well, you know, let's just reflect on and understand the journey here. People have choice, right? They are consumers of a service, and their first choice is, can I afford to pay for private healthcare, or have I got it funded, or do I not? And at that point, that polarizes which direction of travel they're going in to look for support and services. But once they've made that choice to head and look for private options, we are then competing against other organisations for that person's time. And at that point, they're still evaluating, right? So it's that consumer mindset. They are looking at reviews, case studies. They're looking at the quality of your website, your digital footprint, your social media. Once they then, engage with you and decide to book an appointment, then they become a patient. And it's just, I guess, from our perspective, it's been educating all of our staff the importance of understanding that journey, and understanding that we are there to give the best advice to the individual, and it's up to them to make the decision about what they do with that. So again, it's not, I'm sure Claire covered it, not imparting your own personal values onto someone, but actually just giving them your best unbiased professional advice and letting them make the decision. That's the whole concept of an MDT sports medicine environment. You give the advice, you refer on, and hopefully that you've done a good enough job explaining that to the patient that they take your advice on board and do what you need them to do. They do what you need them to do. So yeah, there's definitely been a change within the sector, and certainly within our organisation, about people's understanding of the consumer environment and the fact that people have choice, and that it is okay to be, more commercially minded in that sense, because we're a consumer healthcare business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think having people that are authentic, and you can look at them and you think that they've got conviction in what they're saying. And I think that's really important, that you can just have that genuine relationship with them. And if you think it's great for them, it's exactly what you're saying there. And I think that there is a lot of places that do feel a little bit embarrassed about it. So it's how we cut that stuff out. That's really what I want to help with, is like, how do we help give people real confidence in what they're delivering and belief in it, because that's what everyone wants, to be looked after, really, don't they? It's like I'm happy to pay for stuff if I've got confidence that they're giving me good advice on things.
Absolutely. And I think you've touched on a really important point that impacts the sector in general. I think there is a sort of, and this is stereotyping to a degree, but in general, there are a number of clinical disciplines that do not value what they deliver enough. And I'll talk specifically around physiotherapy. It's a big part of our business, but we operate, or they operate, and we operate as a business. We focus on conservative, non-surgical interventions, and if you can stop someone from needing surgery and actually treat the condition conservatively and get a good outcome, that's extremely positive. And people need to value that. And it starts with the clinicians themselves valuing that that's a very powerful thing. So yeah, it is a challenge. I think we are getting there. I think there are certainly more businesses that I speak to, more owners of businesses in the MSK sector I speak to, who totally get it and are doing a great job with their teams, bringing them on to understand that. So that value proposition is extremely important. And yeah, we're definitely making moves in the right direction. I think there are some challenges in the sector. The private medical insurance market, is challenging, and again, that value proposition is making life difficult. But at an individual level and at a professional level, things are definitely moving forward. But I do think that there has been, for a long time, not enough value placed on the service delivered by the individuals themselves.
Yeah, no, fully agree on that. And like, you mentioned private medical insurance a couple of times on things. Like, where do you see that going? Because that is just continually brought up and is a controversial topic with a number of the clients that I speak with.
Yeah, and right, and it is controversial, and I think there needs to be a bit more clarity about it. Out in the in the wider world, and in the media in particular. I guess we've got a pretty archaic system and how insurance works, health insurance in particular, and how the commissioning of those services works. Um, as a as a sector, we're trying to move to you know value-based commissioning where the quality of what you deliver and the outcomes you get is somewhat reflected in what you and the price you were paid. Um, One of the big challenges in the UK private medical insurance market is that from a commissioning perspective, the tariff is set by the insurer, and you cannot charge the patient the top up. That's part of the service agreement, which is somewhat restrictive. Well, it's not somewhat, it is restrictive. And it goes against lots of other, insurance and other sectors. It's not like that. You get a level of cover. As a consumer, you know where that cover's at, and if you need to claim on it, it's your choice whether you take just that cover, or if you choose to pay a bit extra and get something else. So I think that sort of control and lack of choice is stifling the market to a degree. It's not reflective of all insurers. There are definitely some more innovative insurers, which tend to be some of the smaller ones that are doing a good job at growing their market share and doing a great job at supporting their members. So, but I would say, we know that the market in general is dominated by Bupa and AXA Health in terms of market share, and so they've got incredible influence in the market. And things do need to change. There is no doubt about it. We as a sector, we it's not going to be sustainable if we continue in the same direction. So, what's going to be the catalyst? I don't know. There's positive dialogue happening, but action is slow. So it's an issue. There's no silver bullet, but things do need to change. Is the bottom line.
And how receptive are they to like when you're involved, you've got the relationships with them, like how do you get to speak with at these places and how receptive are they to listening to this stuff?
Well, I mean, I'm fortunate that I do get to speak to people at quite a senior level in these companies. I guess that to some degree the sector being so disparate, and I'm talking about physiotherapy particularly, has played right into their hands. So, if you're looking at the private hospital market, it's a big market and it's a big spend, but there are relatively few number, it's a small number of players. So they've all got an element of leverage, which certainly helps. But within, physiotherapy and again, probably put osteopathy in the same camp, there are thousands of very small businesses, and so therefore it's a highly fragmented market. The insurers have been able to benefit from that, and so the one thing that's going to change that is consolidation, where groups are bought by other groups and made slightly bigger, and you'll start to get some leverage. But look, they are receptive to the conversation, but translating that into change is they don't need to. They don't need to is the short answer. At the moment, they can keep prices low because of the fragmented nature of the market. So something needs to change, whether that's the ultimate payers being the I'd say you've got the individual or the corporate, both of whom have policies, whether it's personal or company policy. It's probably getting to those groups and actually working with innovative brokers in that market to do things better, and ultimately save people money and time. So not hope is not all lost, but it's certainly very, very slow in terms of generating change or meaningful change.
Yeah, because you speak to pretty much every practice, and no one is like no one's particularly happy with the situation in terms of what they do. However, it obviously does give a level of security in that you can have guaranteed or you can have a significant number of clients sent through at that level. Um, so yeah, I think it is a challenging one. And it's just basically because they've got a choice of they've got so many different providers. Is that the real issue that they can just say, right, well, if you don't want it, someone else will.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the fragmented nature of the market. And as you say, like there's a commercial rationale. You get volume, you give a discount. No one's got a problem with that concept at all. It's just that the disparity between the market rate, which effectively is the self-funding rate, or the rate at which someone is willing to pay for those services out of their own pocket, and the average insurance rate, that gap has been growing significantly. And when you take into account inflationary pressures, increase in minimum wage, and even if you correlate that with the increase in private medical insurance premiums themselves, there's a huge disparity. So yeah, I mean the market variance is somewhere between 30 and 45%, which when you're in that territory, it starts to become very challenging commercially to make it work. And so lots of businesses will be actively trying to grow their self-funding share. They'll be actively trying to make the insurers less important to their business, and some will just choose not to deal with them at all. But there are lots of businesses that don't have that option because of their location. So yeah, we've got to find out other ways of driving change.
Yeah, no, well, it's good to have someone that is speaking to these people and really driving it because I think everyone who I speak with will they want something to change in there as well. So for you then, so what were you doing before you joined Pure Sports Medicine?
So I worked in a few different sectors. When I first came to the UK, I was working. So as I said, I'm non-clinical, non-medical. So I come from a operational commercial background. So when I came to the UK, my first job here was working for a big engineering company called Balfour Beatty on a network rail project, which was an IT engineering project. That was actually quite enjoyable, something very different, and it gave me my first foothold in the London job market. And then I moved to roles with BP, so oil and gas, and then finished up at British Telecom, which again, another sector, and another very interesting journey before deciding that I was interested in joining a startup healthcare business. So yeah, that's what I was doing. So very different experiences prior to joining Pure and prior to joining healthcare, but have managed to bring a number of learnings from those different experiences and those different sectors into what I'm doing now. So yeah, it's people say, how'd you end up where you're at? And I said, well, I didn't necessarily have a fixed plan, but I certainly made the most of opportunities when they were presented. And I would say to anyone having the courage to take on options, you might be comfortable where you're at, but actually making sure that you're expanding your mindset, your knowledge, and having the courage to take on a different challenge is the advice I'd give. And that's pretty much led me to where I'm at.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you've worked for three absolute monster companies there, and I'm sure you go into a very different world when you go into pretty much a startup on that. So in terms of those companies, then that's one regret I have is that I didn't work for a big company because I think you do learn from that as well, albeit you've got some challenges in it. But getting support from an education perspective and structures, processes, all those things. What were the benefits that you learned from those?
Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, as you say, there's huge support in those organisations. So that learning and development investment in that is fantastic, and that's a real benefit. Um, I guess one of the challenges in big companies is politics, and the ability or inability to get things done. Things take time, and so and I mean systems wise, they've got a lot of money, and some of the systems are world class, but some of them aren't. And one of the things I certainly learned early on was that not to build a bespoke system, very much try and keep it vanilla. And that's put our company in really good stead at Pure over the years. We've been tempted by bespoke systems, but we've steered clear of that. And that's enabled us to remain agile and move around when we wanted to. Um, so yeah, there's lots of positives. And I think, it's a hard one because I have worked in the large corporate and I've worked in small business, and they're very different experiences. And actually, we've had a few staff members that have wanted to go and work in big corporates, and I've said, yeah, I think you need to go and do it. Particularly in our central business team, I think you need to go and do it and work out if it's for you or not. I would find it very challenging to step back into that world again. I just think the ability to get things done, being able to make decisions quickly, is one of the massive benefits of being in a smaller organization. I mean, you can still be in a large organization, but not at that massive corporate, international level. So yeah, no, it's been great, but I'm very happy not to be in that very large corporate world anymore.
Yeah, my brother worked for PwC for a while, and he was just like, "Yeah, I hate this," and he's now doing his own thing and has been for a while. I think he enjoys it. Sometimes the grass is always green, isn't it? Sometimes you're like, "Oh yeah, that'd be great to do that," and then the reality is it's not so good on it. So the opportunity that you got, so you went in as ops for Pure Sports Med. How did you find out about it, and how did that happen?
Well, I was living with the founder. We were roommates, flatmates. Um,
Right,
so Andrew Willett, the Australian who founded Pure, he and I were connected through rugby. Again, sport's a great conduit, isn't it? So we were connected through rugby, and we were living together in Notting Hill, and Pure was very much going through that first 3 years, that proof of concept stage. So this is 2003 to 2006. Um, and and at that point, towards the end of that 3 year period, became clear that there weren't really any barriers to growth, and the company had secured some equity funding, and we're looking to grow, expand the Kensington clinic and actually take on a substantial site in the City of London. And so Andrew was looking for, they started recruiting for someone to run the operations side of the company. I was at British Telecom at this point doing an operational role. And it was one of those things that I had a few interviews, and we were having a chat one weekend, and it's almost like the penny dropped for him, and he said, "Well, what about you? Why would you not be interested?" And I thought about it, and I'd seen the business and understood it from the ground up, given I was so close to it through the proof of concept, and indeed because it's sports medicine, and I played sport for a good portion of my life, and had on occasions needed treatment. I understood the delivery model. So yeah, I mean, it was in some ways it was an easy decision. I wasn't married at that point, didn't have any dependents, didn't have a mortgage, and felt like a change anyway. So yeah, it was almost, the timing was right to have a crack at the opportunity, and see how it went, see if I enjoyed it. And yeah, 17 years, nearly 18 years later, I'm still enjoying it.
so what was that like then? So you were still living together when you were doing it? Did that cause any issues?
No, it didn't actually. Yeah, we had a really good and respectful working relationship. Plays play and works work, and yeah, I guess it was a complementary skill set there. Andrew was a very entrepreneurial individual, and he was very good at what he did. My skill set was very different, and he respected what I was bringing to the table. So no, it worked really effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, and then was there a clear plan as to where you wanted to get to at that point?
I mean, the clear plan was growth. So it was always, right from day one, this needs to be set up as a growth business. So everything around that, systems, people, processes, all with and growth was just was some point in the future. And that was like another clinic at some point, then another one. It wasn't so much we need to have 20 sites and we need to be in 5 cities. It was just growth, but it was controlled growth. because it was all, doing things properly was also at the core of it. So, maintaining clinical quality was critical because, it's hard to build a good reputation, but much easier to destroy that. So maintaining clinical quality and the focus on that was key. And just in everything we did, just making sure that we were thinking ahead. Is this future proofing? Is this decision going to future proof us? Is this going to enable us to grow more effectively when an opportunity arises? And at that point, we were, trying to accelerate into being a completely digital business. And this is back 2007, 2008, so quite early in that respect. But we knew that was the right thing to do, because at some point, if you're going to have multiple sites, then you need to be able to be agile and be consistent. So yeah, it was just going at it with a vision and I guess an understanding that growth was underpinning everything we did. But no, as I said, no set number on what that growth looked like at that point.
And yeah, so like you've got change management in your on LinkedIn. It's like I've heard that my friends involved in it. I never really quite understand exactly what it means. Like, well, what is change management?
Well, it can be quite. I mean, if you're changing, systems or processes or going through a restructure, that is, that is an element of change in your business that you need to manage. And I think probably at a very basic level, changing systems, for many people that's not so daunting, but for a bunch of clinicians, it's quite daunting, particularly when you're talking about practice management systems, because it's fundamental to everything you do on a daily basis. So yeah, there's been, we've changed systems a couple of times, practice management systems, that is. We've, evolved our internal structure a number of times. We have restructured certain departments several times. And so each time you go through that, it's an element of change. It needs to be managed. And particularly when you're in a service orientated, people focused business, you need to obviously manage that quite carefully and make sure everyone is informed and supported through that change. So yeah, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And then in terms of like, I know you're involved in the MSKPN. That's interesting. How did that come about?
Yeah, well, I guess it came out of basic need. So it was conversations between Andrew Walton from Connect Health, Rupert Crowfoot from Six Physio, and myself, that we didn't have a trade association that represented businesses working in the independent delivery of MSK services. So privately owned businesses. So yeah, we got chatting, pre-COVID, and felt that there was, well, the first thing is because there's elements of competition amongst that group, so building some trust early on, and then actually working out there's some commonality between private businesses working in the NHS environment, and indeed private businesses, some independent businesses working in the private healthcare sector. And so we felt that there was this need, and started to bring other businesses in, and we're actually just getting things started really, and then the pandemic hit, and that was really, I think, although because it was incredibly difficult, it provided a springboard for us as a trade association to engage with a large number of people. So a large number of small businesses that just didn't have knowledge or support were leaning on us, which was great. So, I think we had over 100 businesses join us during that period. And yeah, on coming out the other side, you've got the focus back onto the core elements, which were around quality, but commercial support remained, and that's been great. So yeah, as a trade association, we continue to grow and try and support our members in the best way we can, which has been fantastic. So yeah, I've been again another interesting journey, having been one of the founding directors, and then latterly picking up the chairman role of that association in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good to have something like that to bring that fragmented, more common voice on things as well. And that just as a general thing from your experience, but also as part of that network, what are the key skills that you think, non-clinical skills that help organizations be successful, either clinicians and then organizations that help them be a success in this industry?
Well, I think good people management skills are critical. And I mean, you need them as a clinician anyway, I think, to engage with patients in the right way. But I mean that, I think, in terms of um, people skills in a team environment, and being able to coordinate people to all point in the same direction. Being able to delegate effectively, I think, is key again, because while when you start out, you may end up being a jack of all trades and doing quite a lot. As your business grows, your time is better spent on things that no one else can do, and you need to relinquish the reins, so to speak, to other people to do the things that they can do maybe better than you. And I think also just being able to have that sort of that forward thinking mindset. Just, yes, it's important to focus on the here and now, but if you are genuinely wanting to grow your business, you need to be always casting your eye ahead to make sure that what you are doing is setting you up for, if it's not for, well, you've got an idea of what growth might look like, but even just being able to ensure that you can make the most of opportunities when they arise. So yeah, and I guess there's some agility or agile mindset required there as well. And because that often requires change, being able to embrace change in a positive sense, are sort of attributes that I think are required, certainly at a management and leadership level. So that probably leans on the business owner.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you for that. I know it's quite a broad question, so appreciate the answer. No, it's really good. Again, I love seeing what Pure Sports Med are doing, and the team. You've got a really good team. I enjoy spending time with them. They always seem really driven. So you're obviously creating a really good culture in there. Like, well, where do you see that it's going to be in the next couple of years? Like, what are there any big things that you really do want to achieve?
Um, I mean, I think there's lots more potential. I mean, the market is, demand for MSK services is increasing dramatically, and has been on an increase for a number of years. So the opportunity is there. I think it's exciting that how the market is evolving. And again, we're talking about consumer healthcare. There are definitely businesses that are very focused on that. So I think that's exciting. There are plenty of opportunities. There's still opportunities for us in London. I mean, we've got a fairly good footprint, but there are opportunities for us. I think also, navigating the corporate world. So actually working out how to work more directly with corporate clients, which clearly negates some of the challenges with the PMIs potentially. I think that's a real opportunity. So yeah, it's to a degree, it's more of what we've been doing in the last couple of years. And we've worked hard to recruit on the back of COVID. So there's been, the last couple of years have been very focused on bringing clinical availability back up to the levels we need them to. So all of that is there now, and it's making the most of it. And it's important to continue to grow, because, as I said before, with growth comes opportunity, and being able to deliver opportunities to staff for them to move into new roles and develop is key, in terms of retention. So yeah, there's just making most of the opportunities and delving a bit more into the corporate market from our perspective.
Brilliant. No, great. Well, good luck with all of that. I think it's really good to see that you're doing this and driving it forward. And so it's inspiring for me to see it. So I appreciate your time today, and good luck with it all.
Thanks for having me on, Andy. Appreciate it.
Cheers.